Restoring Torah observance. We mentioned the development of the laws of muktzeh. Muktzeh is a category in Chot Shabbat, where according to halakha you can touch all kinds of things on Shabbat. But when Nehemiah saw the Jews were touching things on Shabbat that would make them use them to work on Shabbat, the Dvarim Asurim, he made a law called muktzeh. It's muktzeh, it means you can't touch it on Shabbat. A classic case of muktzeh would be, I don't know if it's a real muktzeh, but what would treat it, this kupat tzedakah. If somebody were here on Shabbat, the kupat tzedakah is there, people wouldn't move it, they would just leave it there. You want to put it there, they wouldn't put it there. Because there's no purpose for me to touch a kupat tzedakah on Shabbat. What am I going to do? I can't put money inside of it on Shabbat. I can't use the money from inside of it on Shabbat. There's no reason to touch it. And this idea of muktzeh comes from the Prophet Nehemiah. Alongside renewing the study of the Torah by all sectors of the nation, which the Anshe Knesset now were doing, everybody was studying Torah. We're saying Chizkiyahu forced everybody. He would stand in the Midrash. Everybody has to come and study. He was the first one to force mandatory education on the population. The men of the Great Assembly attempted to restore the former stature of the observance of the Torah. The spiritual condition of the returnees to Zion was abysmal. Assimilation, estrangement from the Torah, and the banality of everyday existence all combined to create an alienated Jewish society with an amorphous religious identity. So the Jews came back, but they came back not connected at all to Torah mitzvot. At this point, the men of the Great Assembly acted to make a protective fence around the Torah. It's the first Mishnaic and Talmudic. Nasu siyag the Torah. Make a fence for the Torah. Why do you have to make a fence for the Torah? The Torah is fine on its own. 613 mitzvot, that's already too many mitzvot. Why do you have to now make a siyag? Why a siyag? Because they saw that the people were not observing the Torah on its own, and they felt that you have to push the people to do more, to keep them away.
It's also hard as it is.
It's also hard. It's hard as it is.
Explanations.
The need to introduce edicts so as to prevent people from sinning resulted from the loss of standing of the halakha among the people. If they have to make takanot, it's because people don't appreciate the halakha on its own. The clearest example of this is the decree of the men of the Great Assembly regarding the laws of muktzeh. A rabbi's taught, this is from Masechet Shabbat, the Talmud. A rabbi's taught, at first day the Chachamim ruled that the three utensils may be handled on Shabbat. A fig cake, a knife, something you cut, tenim. They would make the tenim like you see it from Turkey. They squish them together and you cut them with a knife. A soup pot ladle and a small table knife. Then they permitted other articles. They permitted again more, and they permitted more until they ruled all utensils may be handled on the Shabbat except for a saw, the large saw and the pin of a plow. Meaning, you see, as the generation becomes more observant, the takanot become less and less and less, not more and more and more. It's a little different than what we see today in the world. Then they said, why would we make takanot if the people are already keeping halakha? If the people are not keeping halakha, we have to push them to keep halakha. But when they're not, so we can ease the takanot. Rabbi Chanina said this Mishnah was taught in the days of Nehemiah, son of... Okay, as it is written... Okay, these are all psukim. The Gemara is saying that this happened in the days of Nehemiah. Nehemiah comes and he sees the status of the Jewish people in Eretz Israel. And he says, look, what can I do? We have to start making takanot. And you see, as he makes takanot, which people listen to, as the people begin to observe Shabbat better, they let you do more things, and let you do more things until ultimately, aside from a saw and a plow, a pin of the plow, everything is allowed.
Sorry, so התקופה הזאת between עזרא ונחמיה to go back to Israel, they were like כאילו לא שומרי שבת, לא זה
ממש nothing.
ומתחתנים עם לא יהודים והכל?
Yeah.
כי אז באו כל התקנות האלה.
הכל, everything, in this generation...
איך? למה זה קרה?
התורה השתתחה מישראל. All the good Jews, stayed in Bavel. They didn't come to Eretz Israel. The Jews that came to Eretz Israel, אין להם מה להפסיד, what are we going to do? They're going, free real estate, we're going to go with them to Israel.
They study Torah in Bavel.
Yes.
כן, כי הם היו גם כל ה-educated.
כל הכהנים and all the people were studying, but those who came back, they were the simple of the people.
So takanot means amendment? What does it mean?
Yeah, takanot. It's like a decree.
תוספות.
Let's say you can't think of a takana. You're allowed to eat food cooked by a non-Jewish person, according to the Torah. When the Chachamim saw that the Jews and the non-Jews were getting too close to each other, they made a takana. And really, there's takanot, there's gzerot, there's minhagim, there's different categories, but I'm going to use generically takana. They made a takana, you're not allowed to eat food cooked by goyim. Why? Nothing to do with kashrut. Some say because of the kashrut, but really if the food is kosher, because you can't get so close to the goy. We start eating together, cooking together, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. At the end, we all marry each other's kids, and that's the end of the Jewish people. That's a takana. Chachamim only make that takana when they see that assimilation is a problem. Before assimilation, before intermarriage is a problem, they don't make such a takana. And you see this happens in many places. This happens every generation. Every generation and the problems a generation has. And those takanot, they change based on, in fact, if you want to know what was the problem of the generation, any generation in history, what was their problem? Go look in the books of the Chachamim and see what the takanot were. What was happening there that they were making takanot about these things? And then you'll know what the problem was. There also are takanot, which are amendments. You said amendments, like in Morocco, they have a takanot in Morocco. They, like in Miknas, they had a bedin that made takanot. Some of these takanot are changing previous decrees that were they fell out of the wayside, or sometimes even the Gemara already in Morocco, Chachamim were trying to rule that daughters should inherit money like the boys inherit money. Not just the sons should inherit, also the daughters should get Yerusha. Those were takanot that technically go against things that were written before, but a bedin that's accepted by the people has permission to make a lot of takanot. It's like in Ashkenaz, the idea not to eat kidneyot. This came as their problems. Kidneyot had chametz mixed with them, or whatever problem they had. So they made in their place a rule. You can't have these things. Well, now that takana does not have the same weight like the takana of the Talmud. Why? The Talmud, we all have to listen to. So Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, Temanim, Chasidim, everybody has to listen to the Talmud. A takana that happened in Poland, the Jew of Germany doesn't have to listen to, and definitely not the Jew in Morocco or Yemen or Iraq doesn't have to listen to them. Every those takanot are already smaller takanot. They're by the local chachamim. The only ones who can make takanot in the whole Jewish people are Chachamei Israel of the Talmud. After the Talmud, there's no more central authority in Am Yisrael. Now, what the Rabbanut Rashit is trying to do, they're trying to make themselves again the head of all the Jewish people, making takanot. But look, nobody listens because they're not the chief rabbis of the whole world. They run themselves.
But they do, איך אומרים, מתייעצים איתם, מפה, עם
That's right, אבל הם לא,
If there is a
רב
problem,
הראשי
they do.
ישראל is not the רב הראשי of every person in the world. It's different than חכמי התלמוד. חכמי התלמוד, Hillel and Shammai were the chachamim of the whole world. Everybody accepted them as chachamim. That's the difference here.
Right. To keep takanot, won't it be more difficult to keep it rather than the original way? An example, kashrut. Kashrut, they put so many takanot that actually you lost the real sentence of how it was appeared in the Torah.
Maybe look at it from a different direction. When someone calls me and says, hey, I put this meat inside of my dairy pot, when they're calling me, it's not really a question of halakha. I mean, they didn't break any halachot.
Right.
So really, at that point, I can tell them, don't worry, everything's okay. I mean, the opportunity to actually break a halakha, it's like a cushion. They're only breaking the cushion. They're not breaking the actual halakha.
Got it.
It's like when you build the White House. So really, you should make a rule in the White House. Nobody can come in the front door without permission. But what do? Today they have a perimeter fence, and they have Secret Service, and they have, why? Why don't they just leave the guard by the door? Because if they leave the guard by the door, people are going to break into the actual White House. So here, they rather, those crazy people, they jump on the fence, and they run to the White House, and they get shot, whatever happens. They need that room. They need the cushion to make sure the White House stays safe.
So it's for people actually they cannot keep the actual
law.
way how to do it.
Which is very interesting. You're going to find there are certain rules in the Talmud that Chachamim made a takana, but they say a Talmid Chacham patur. Talmid Chacham doesn't have to listen to this. Because we trust the Talmid Chacham that he won't break the actual law.
Right.
This is something that we see often. Because the rules these takanot are not made for everybody. The takanot are made to help protect the people that need the takana. It's like almost like a little kid. What do you tell a little kid? Don't go outside of the front door without asking Ima and Abba. Now really, what do you want? You don't want him in the middle of the street, Chas v'shalom. When he grows up, when he's 15, 16, 20, he shouldn't be standing by the door waiting permission to go outside. If that's still happening, you made a messed up child. If the child has to be, he has to know, I'm walking to the sidewalk until the street. It's age appropriate. Based on the age of the child, you make different rules. We have houses where you have 2 floors, and they put a gate by the stairs. The kid doesn't fall down the stairs. But the kid who's 10, you're not afraid anymore he's going to fall down the stairs. If the kid still has to wait for you by the gate for you to open, it's a problem.
Yeah.
These are takanot. Takanot are meant to keep people away from doing something that they themselves can't control.
But you don't teach it like that.
I teach it like that.
No, I know, but generally,
people
most
don't teach
people.
it like that.
Because
That's
why I asked the question is because I understood that if you don't follow the takanot, it's like you created a sin. It's like, a dagger in you because you feel the fear. And it's not really like that.
That's right. But there are things like this all the time. You want to make a mikveh. Yeah, we need a mikveh in San Diego, let's say. According to halakha, a mikveh has to be natural rainwater. It has to be. It can't be in a pipe. It can't be in a kli. It can't. What makes the difference in rainwater and a tap water? This, even though it may have come from the rain, it's now sitting in a kli. Now that it's in a kli, it's not kasher for a mikveh anymore.
Oh.
It can't be. It has to be from the rain straight into the mikveh. Which is why the pipes that they use in the mikveh are very complicated. They're not actual kelim. There's never a place where the water stays before it goes to the mikveh.
Okay. But the mikveh is a kli.
Oh, but the mikveh is already in the ground. In the ground, if you can't move it, it's not a kli.
Did you see the new one? They fixed
I saw the pictures. I did.
מאוד יפה, אני
Yeah,
הייתי
they
שם.
also in the Jacob area, they're fixing the
אני לא
mikveh.
מגיעה לשם.
Yeah,
אבל
I saw pictures of the
תגיד
new
לאיזה
mikveh.
Hadat?
תסתלת לפה, זה
Yeah.
מאוד יפה.
Well,
We're talking about that?
Yeah, they made a
כן.
new mikveh there.
Really?
Beautiful.
And
No,
this-
it's not new.
They remodeled the mikveh.
אבל as it is, it wasn't bad compared to the one that
I
I know
thought so.
in Chabad.
Right.
It's beautiful.
So a kli, once it's bakarka, you can't move it. It's not a kli anymore. It's your swimming pool. Yeah, it's also a big bowl, but it's not really a bowl because you can't move it anymore.
Okay.
So, without getting complicated in the laws of mikvaot, how can I turn this water back into rainwater? בעצם, how can I make this? איך אני יכול להכשיר את המים האלו בשביל המקווה?
Right.
So Chachamim have a very simple solution. It's called mayim she'uvim. You take a a hose, and you let it go on the ground for a certain period, a few feet. You let it grow, and then it goes into instead of coming from the pipe into the pool, it goes on the ground a little bit. It rolls
Okay.
on the ground.
ואז זה
Now
קשה.
it becomes midalat. According to the Torah, this water is rainwater again.
Okay.
According to the Chachamim, it's not okay. It doesn't work.
Okay.
Okay?
So they made
Now what happens? When we're in a place...
מה, חכמים יותר חכמים מהתורה?
Chachamim שמו גדר. It's a
It's
takana. It's
takana,
a rule.
it's a
Yeah,
takana.
I'm showing the takana. Now, there's a writing of the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish was one of Chachamei Ashkenaz in Israel about 70 years ago, 60 years ago. And he writes in a place, let's say you're in a place, a small Jewish community, and they don't have money, or they don't have rain. It doesn't rain over there. You have to make a mikveh of this kind of water, because the isul to be with your husband or with your wife while the person is a delight. It's isul Torah. So the very least we have to fix on a Torah level. We don't have to make the rabbis happy. Now we have to make the Torah happy. Once you make the Torah happy, already the rabbis, they can wait. Meaning the takana can wait because the takana was not made in a place where you can't keep the takana. And this could have been a solution for many, many places to turn swimming pools into mikvahot. If somebody wanted, we could do
Right.
such a thing. But people don't want. What can they don't want it. For Sfaradim, it's very easy to make a mikvah. Also for Ashkenazim, but they don't. For Sfaradim, you have to go buy ice. A big block of ice. You can order this. The truck. They bring you ice. You put it in the mikveh. You wait for the ice to melt on its own, and that's considered natural water. We do that all over the place.
But it's not rainy water, it's the same as the tap water.
But it's not. It was an ice block. When it's ice, you can't be tovel in ice. Meaning, when it becomes water, it's already in the mikveh.
It's like that.
Yeah, but like that, sometimes you have to come up with a solution.
God,
I mean, the beautiful thing of Chachamim's takanot is
Uh-huh.
sometimes they make takanot to help us. I mean, sometimes they do things to help us when you say on Shabbat, you're not allowed to cook on Shabbat. So I can't make tea anymore on Shabbat. Chachamim say, no, you put it in a second cup, kli sheni, or a kli shlishi, it's okay. What are they doing? They're not trying to make our life more complicated. Because without the kli sheni or the kli shlishi, we'd never be allowed to make tea on Shabbat. So they want us to have tea, but they're telling us how to do it in a way. Yeah, it's okay, but it's okay. They're helping us out. Not all the takanot of Chachamim are there to make our life more. Sometimes when you look at the takanot, they're actually there to help us. Torah says, ayin tachat ayin, shen tachat shen. If someone pokes somebody's eye out, you poke their eye out. That's what it says in the Torah, no? If you want to follow the Torah, that's what you should do. Chachamim say, no. It can't be like that. You can't. One avil doesn't fix another avil. You can't do like that. Rather, Chachamim say, ayin tachat ayin is kesef. How much value did this person lose? Let's say they're a surgeon. Now they can't work anymore because they don't have an eye. You have an obligation to pay the amount of money that they lost because they can't work anymore.
So they're really changing the Torah because it works with society better than it used to work in the old days.
No, we don't believe that we ever poke people's eyes out.
I was going to say,
we believe that
those days they didn't.
Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai received the Torah Shabbat Peh, and part of the Torah Shabbat Peh was saying, don't think for one moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to poke someone's eye out for something else. It just can't be. And we have understanding from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that it doesn't mean that. But anybody else who's going to read the Torah will tell us, hey, you're not following the Torah.
Right.
Well, we follow the Torah the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us. It's kind of like when you send your husband to the grocery store and buy something. Pickles, rice, this. You tell him, which kind of pickles? Which kind of, I don't want brown rice, I want white rice, But you didn't write it down on the paper, you just wrote pickles and rice. Because if I were to take your shopping list, I would buy you all the wrong things. But that's why you told your husband how to read the shopping list. We have the same thing with the Torah. If someone takes away our Torah from us, they'll never understand how to read it properly. But if they read the Torah the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu read it to us, they'll know how to read the Torah. That's what the Chachamim do.
Thank you.
The oral tradition recorded in this Baitah describes the development of the laws of Muktzeh. According to this tradition, Nehemiah witnessed wholesale desecration of Shabbat in Yerushalayim, as evidenced by people treading wine presses and gathering sheaves. And people were working on Shabbat in Yerushalayim like any day of the week. Shabbat had become totally profane, its observance at an all-time low. Not only was it not observed, its very existence had been forgotten. I'll tell you the truth, that I've been teaching a class in LA now, 2 series called Pagans Among Us. How Chachamim dealt with people who don't observe halakha. When you look at today in Israel, you're not dealing with Mechalelei Shabbat. I know what I'm saying sounds interesting. The majority of Israeli Jews recognize that today is Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them even do Kiddush. Many of them even sometimes hop into a synagogue with it. But for them, Shabbat is a day they go to the beach. Shabbat is a day they go on a trip with the family. But Shabbat is different for them than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Which means these people, maybe not observing Shabbat, they're not Shomrei Shabbat. But Mechalelei Shabbat also they're not. They're in a category of people who recognize Shabbat is a Yom Menucha. Shabbat is the day of rest for the Jewish people. They don't do it right, according to halakha, but they're doing it. They're observing Shabbat. So it would be incorrect to treat the generation of people living in Israel today, all of them like they're Mechalelei Shabbat. It's incorrect. I mean, the Jewish people still recognize Shabbat is the day of... we had now on Israeli TV, there was a report about all the zamarim, all the singers that don't perform on Shabbat. Dozens, not one or two, dozens, the Festival, the famous music celebration in Israel, it doesn't happen on Shabbat already for the second time. The second time, the musicians won't perform on Shabbat. These are not people with the kippah, they're regular, they don't want to perform on Shabbat. He said, I'm Jewish, why should I work on Shabbat? In the olden days, no, but for me, Shabbat is the day that I don't perform. I'm going to send it out maybe to the Google Classroom for those who understand Hebrew. It's a mechazek. There are people that consider Shabbat. I even saw something special. Someone called me this week and said she's a doctor doing residency. She happens to have 3 days off this week that she can go fly to visit her parents. And she was planning to book a ticket, and one of her friends told her, no, you can't go. You can't fly in the 9 days. You can't travel now, and it's very dangerous. So I told her that she shouldn't be afraid. She's going for a mitzvah to visit her parents. You trust Hashem, nothing will happen to you. And she was so excited. Then someone said, clearly someone asked her, what's his source? Who said? So I told her, family is also a mitzvah. It's not just what you think is a mitzvah, Keeping your family together is also a mitzvah. And so I was watching this segment on musicians who started keeping Shabbat and canceled their concerts on Shabbat. It's about a lot of money. It's a lot of money to cancel a concert and say they invited you to Las Vegas. And I won't perform on Friday night. You can have me on Saturday. Friday night I won't perform. They think you're crazy. It's a lot of money. You're a little musician from Israel. What are you making big noise? Yeah, I don't want to perform. So there was a band over there. You might know them. I don't know who they are. It's a 3-part band. 3 partners. They've been around for 30 years, about 40 years. And they started off, 3 of them, secular guys. They're regular Israelis playing Israeli music. And then, over time, so now you're 30 years later, one of them is with a black hat and a beard and a long pelt. The middle one is like Masoti, he goes to the Knesset, he has a family, does Shabbat, but he's not very religious, he's traditional. And the third one is just as secular as he was 30 years ago. And they still perform together. They have a rock band, and they still perform they're in public, music together. They were talking about what happened to them a few years ago. was that, but a number of years ago, they decided they want to have a female vocalist added to the group. I think I shared this in Kola.
Wow.
They wanted a lady singing. And it became complicated. Because for the one who was a Haredi, it was a problem that a lady should be singing.
Right.
So he didn't know what to do. So he went to his rabbi. And listen, this is a clever rabbi. Clearly somebody who understood that. He said, all the musicians, they wear earphones. Because they have to hear each other. The drummer especially, he has to hear what they're singing, what they're playing. He says, can you mute whoever you want to mute.
Oh.
It's just mute her microphone.
Right.
You don't want to hear her,
Yeah.
mute the microphone. And they asked her, she was okay with it, she wasn't offended, she's part of the band. So he mutes her microphone, he puts in with the he's drumming, she's singing. But how do you know? He says, I know the song by heart, I wrote the song, 30 years ago I've been playing the song. So I know exactly what she's singing, I don't need to hear her. And they said, but doesn't it sound a little bit like you're going around? And he said, my rabbi said, friendship is also a holy thing. Chaverut ze gam davar kadosh, like that. Friendship is also a holy thing. I think that kind of mentality could keep a lot of people together.
Yeah.
If we put friendship and family as values of holiness, it's a holy thing to have a family. Well, kibbud avayim doesn't only apply if your parents keep kosher. Kibbud avayim applies also when your parents don't keep kosher. Kibbud avayim doesn't only apply when your parents look like you or dress like you, or also when not. And maybe more when not. It's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder. So you're dealing with people here in the generation of Nehemiah. It's nothing like our generation. The people in the generation of Nehemiah did not know that today was Shabbat. They thought today is Wednesday. They had no understanding of Shabbat. It's not like they got together for dinner and then went to work the next day. There was a Chacham in South America, I don't want to share his name or the community, but when he started being a rabbi there about 60 years ago, everybody in his community worked on Shabbat. Everybody. Everybody went to work. Everyone went to open a store. And he decided to make a minyan at 6 o'clock in the morning. Instead of 8:30 or Shabbat, 6 o'clock in the morning. That way he can be finished at 8 o'clock. So all the people can go open their work, their stores at 8:30. And people screamed at him, like, you crazy man, what are you taking into consideration the people that are working on Shabbat? He said, yes. The next generation, almost all of them keep Shabbat. Almost all of them keep Shabbat. This rabbi didn't let he didn't let the fact that they worked on Shabbat make them leave the community. And because of that, he kept everybody together. That's a chacham. Well, that's why he's not called a rabbi. Mazer Rav. Rav is a Mishnah Rav in Kulam. You find to the Ribbon. Yeah? No, a Rav comes from Ribbon. He's a master. He owns people. A chacham is one who's a pikach. He understands things. That's why we always called our chachamim, not rabbanim. That's a later term we're using for rabbis. So not only was it not observed, its very existence had been forgotten. That's what that means. People forgot about Shabbat. We're on page 16. Thank you. Perhaps it was the returnees' struggle for survival that had thrown them into such an intense whirlwind of work, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But this was a sad situation in Yerushalayim in the days of the Great Assembly. So he's judging them favorably. Maybe it's because they were so busy trying to build their country again that they forgot. A similar thing happened in the 30s and 40s in Israel. People came to Israel. They didn't have the luxury to think now about Shabbat and about it. They want to survive. There's malaria. There are Jordanians. They're British. There are Arabs. We don't have time for this religious stuff you guys are doing. He's judging them favorably. The people's alienation from Torah was so deep that it could not be remedied simply by the cosmetic fix of instituting public readings of the Torah. A major upheaval was needed to bring the people back to its roots. Something big had to happen. And that was Nehemiah. Nehemiah was no Democrat and made no pretension of consulting with others. Nehemiah did not come as, let's vote on this together. Let's decide what's going to be the tzivyon, what's going to be the flavor of the state of Israel. Nehemiah made takanot. To make the Shabbat part of the world and the mentality of the Jews once again, he decided to introduce a dramatic change. The Shabbat was desecrated primarily by the wine traders and wine merchants. In other words, in the context of trade and employment. The people who were working were those who desecrated Shabbat. Accordingly, Nehemiah prohibited the use of all tools on Shabbat, only permitting the 3 tools that were used by the people for their Shabbat meals. So you can use, what's the difference between a knife and a saw? A knife used for your fish on Shabbat, and the saw used for, you can't touch a saw, you can only touch a knife. Over the years, as general awareness of Shabbat observance increased, it became possible to become gradually more lenient. So they permitted more, until they arrived at the Mishnaic formulation: all utensils may be handled in the Shabbat except the large saw and the pin of a plow. Classic utensils for performing professional work on Shabbat. This was part of the concept: place a protective fence around the Torah, assume siyag v'torah. This is part of the rule. So you see, then as the generation became more conscious of Shabbat, the takanot decreased and decreased. Sometimes I wonder about this in the Jewish community we have today. It seems like as you go to a more intensely observant place, the takanot only increase and increase and increase. Then almost like the people didn't learn the lesson, and as they become more, I'm only saying, I'm not really using these words, as they become more observant, they also become more fanatic. Because somehow they're never in a comfortable enough place where they know what halakha is. I'll give you an example. Now, it's the 9 days. Many of the Jewish communities in the world have a minhag. They don't eat meat in the 9 days. From Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av, they don't eat meat. Why?
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury. Meat is a fancy meal. It's very, you don't have a steak every night. It's a fancy meal, so we stay away from meat. In North Africa, for example, the minhag excluded things like salami or beef jerky or all the kinds of inferior meat products. It's not fresh. It's not a. Today it's funny because you pay more for those things than you pay for a fresh meat. And so today the world is upside down. And so today that would be considered included in the minhag as well. It's not a prohibition. It's a minhag. The only time it's forbidden to eat meat in the 9 days, mitzad adin, according to halakha, is the last meal before the fast. Sudam of second. That meal you can't eat meat even according to Chachamim. This year doesn't apply because this year it's Shabbat. But if it was a regular weekday, you cannot have meat in the last meal.
But you could do it before that.
Yes, for sure.
So it's a very, very last.
It's a very last minute prohibition, and that was extended by certain communities for the 9 days. So what do you see? Someone sent me an advertisement from New York about in certain communities they have a custom that if you finish a masechet of Talmud, you finish studying something, you can have a big meal. So what they've done, it's a loophole. They pay people to finish masechtot, and they make a siyum, and then everybody eats meat. This comes from Shulchan Aruch says that if you have a brit or you have something happens, a brit is a good example. That comes out during the 9 days, you eat meat and it's a party. You drink wine, you eat meat because it's a mitzvah. So they've decided to make. See, the difference in a brit and a siyum is a brit you don't choose when the brit happens. It happens on the 9 days. It happens. It's a mitzvah. A siyum you chose it should happen. Right? That's you don't have to choose to make a siyum during the 9 days. And the whole year when these people make a siyum, they serve some cookies and orange juice. Comes the 9 days, it's steaks, it's ribeye, it's London broil, it's carving stations. You should see how it happens. So they show a video of these two men who are studying, and they're like, wow, we have 68 pages left till the siyum, but so far from now. And the guy says, yeah, let's just, why are you rushing? Why do you have to read so fast? It's because I want to eat meat. He says, why do you have to eat meat? Come to this restaurant. And they show you, these people are eating a tortellini on a bed of fresh basil leaves and this ravioli stuffed with this, things that very expensive cuisine. And they see these people, they're all they're eating these huge towers of food, and they're falling asleep on the table. I'll show you the video afterward. And then he says at the end, after they have 17 plates of food, he says, see, you don't have to make a siyum to eat good during the 9 days. You can just come here to this restaurant. And that was the ad. And the story is like this. The people totally missed the point. Having a deli sandwich, forgive me, in the spirit of the law, in the spirit of the takana, if you would have a bologna sandwich, that sandwich is much more inferior to the ravioli on the bed of Parmesan cheese. You chose a fancier food than you eat the rest of the year. The point was not that you shouldn't have meat. The point was you should eat in the 9 days like an aved. We're mourning at the destruction of Beit Mikdash. Imagine you go to someone's house for the shiva and you bring them some fancy dish from a French restaurant. Now they're mourning. Meto mutar lefanav. The Rambam writes about his father. He said he doesn't remember his father before Tisha B'Av ever eating a tafshil mevushal, anything cooked. He said he was sitting there on the floor between the oven and the stove, crying. Kimi shemeto mutar lefanav, like a person whose dead body, his relative, is on the floor in front of him. That's what his father looked like before Tisha B'Av. And these geniuses decided, okay, so we can't have meat, so we're going to have the fanciest dairy food we can eat the whole year. They missed the point.
Why did they make this minhag, these restrictions, and then spend their whole time trying to find loopholes around them?
That's right. At the end of the day, what happens if a person eats meat today? What if they just, I'm eating meat today? What happened? Which halakha did they break?
Minhag.
They violated a minhag, like you said. So what happened? You're in a place, the only kosher food you have. By the way, the restaurants, the halakha is that kosher restaurant should stay open during the 9 days and serve meat food. Why?
אין בעיה בסן דייגו.
Why?
And
Parnasa.
restaurant. See,
Why?
Parnasa?
Not because of parnasa, because what about the people who don't really keep kasher? They have an option to come to you and eat food. If you close, they're going to Burger King.
Mhm.
So you think it's okay for you to close your restaurant because of a minhag
Interesting.
and cause people to eat
That's
food
a
that's
smart
not
Very
kasher?
smart, yeah.
It's a minhag. That's all that it is. I don't know what happened. I haven't been to Ralph's. I don't know what happens in the 9 days at Ralph's with the steaks. I don't know if they sell them anymore. I don't know if they stop. I don't know. I'm
I'm
not sure.
sure they do.
But
Yeah.
they should.
Of
I don't know who
course.
they're asking, but for sure
I
they
promise
should.
you they do.
Do you know how many Jews come there to buy kosher meat? I see all kinds of Israelis there, all kinds of students there. I see all kinds of
Especially
people
in
there.
summer.
So they don't all keep this minhag. You're lucky they're keeping kasher. You have to still cater to those who are keeping kasher and not following this minhag. But when you get confused between the minhag and what is a halakha, you don't know how to act properly.
Mm.
And if I were to say what I'm saying right now in front of other synagogues somewhere else, they would tell me, "Well, you're a reform rabbi." I don't take that as an insult, but what? You don't know halakha? No, to the contrary. This is the halakha. The chachamim made a takana that you're supposed to be eating, like a bitzniut. It's supposed to be a time where you're supposed to think about the Ben Mikdash, not about your food. You can eat whatever you want. The chachamim suggested the things you stay away from. Meat. You don't have to eat meat every day of the week. What are you in a wedding every day? You're in a bar mitzvah every day. It doesn't have to be that way. But you can't. Today, when you start to tell people the meaning behind the halakha, they
Right.
look at you like you're crazy. Well, like
So
that.
it's easier to focus on these little objective things and to really figure out, well, what happened to us? Why do all these catastrophes happen? I mean, to really think about what's important, what you're supposed to think about. These little meat.
That's the purpose of the minhagim, or to put you in a frame of
But it
mind.
doesn't.
It's like on Tisha B'Av. You're not supposed to wear leather shoes. You're not supposed to shower. You're not supposed to eat and drink, and like Yom Kippur. The reason Chachamim do this is so you have nothing else to focus on. You just focus on the Ben Mikdash. Focus on the destruction of the Jewish people. Focus on how we're gonna get out of this and get to a better place. Instead, what do people do? They definitely don't eat. They don't drink. They don't wear shoes. They don't shop. They're not thinking about anything. They go to the mall on Tisha B'Av to go shopping. They go sit in the park. They go on vacation. It's a day trip. It's a time when we have nothing to do. We're off of work. It's a Sunday. So they get the point.
I think it's because it's not being taught the way you're explaining
That's
it
correct.
right now.
That's correct.
Really, it's totally eye-opening to me because I was under the impression that all the takanot is it.
That is what the purpose is.
That's what we should do. That's the purpose, and it didn't make sense to me. It's the first time I'm hearing the explanation for it, and now with clarity, actually you feel it. You feel what you have to do rather than sway away from not doing.
that. That's right. Thank you. But we talk about Shabbat. We in the Kollel, we were learning the book of the Rambam's son. Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam. Look at 3 generations.
Rabbi?
I quoted the Rambam quoting his father, Rabbi Maimon, and then now Rabbi Avraham about his father. Rabbi Avraham, the son of the Rambam. You study his book here.
לא ידעתי
I don't know
שהבן שלו גם חכם.
Okay.
When on Shabbat?
I know we studied before Kollel. We've been taking a break for a little bit, but we'll be back into it soon. For a few years. We have a whole playlist on YouTube of the Guide to Serving God, it's called. Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam writes, there are 2 ways to keep Shabbat. There's an inferior way of keeping Shabbat, which most people do. They know all the things they're not allowed to do on Shabbat. All the things they have to do on Shabbat. They have to do kiddush. They have to have 2 bread. They have to have they cannot touch this. They cannot do that. They know all of the rules. They keep all of those things. So that's an inferior way of keeping Shabbat. It's Shabbat, yeah, but it's not a real Shabbat. There's the Rambam, there's the one who keeps Shabbat. He doesn't do any of those things, and he does all of kiddush, and he does the bread, but the whole Shabbat, he understands the context is to reach a mindset of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a consciousness. Says Rabbi Avraham, what is the point of the Shabbat without the consciousness which all of these rules are meant to bring you to?
That's it.
That's the point of Shabbat.
Yeah.
So how can you say, oh, look at him, this one doesn't do this, he doesn't cook, I know, good for you. Mazal tov. Did you accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish? Chachamim keep us away from things that involve yitzira, some kind of creation. Why? To make us cognizant of the fact there only is one creator of the world. We don't work. We're conscious of the fact that even if I don't go to work today, my parnasah does not come from me, it comes from the creator of the world. These are the things we have to be thinking about. And we've somehow created a context where all kinds of people keep Shabbat. You go to communities, religious communities. I'm complaining now. And you see that women don't go to the Beit HaKnesset. They don't come. Now, I'll tell you, maybe they don't come because they don't like the Beit HaKnesset. It's not a nice experience for them. That could be. I'm not putting the blame on somebody. Someone told me now, listen, every time I go to a religious community on Shabbat that's not here, the lady stays home. She waits for her husband to come home to serve chamim. So what kind of spiritual experience was that for me? Did I stay at somebody's house who's Shomer Shabbat? That's all that's important? What about the Beit HaKnesset? What about praying? What about seeing the Torah? My grandmother, she barely could walk at the end of her life. She would not miss a Shabbat morning in the Beit HaKnesset to go kiss the Torah. Never.
Wow.
My grandma didn't know how to read. I'm not embarrassed of that. She didn't know how to read. Nobody taught her in Morocco how to read. 15, she was married. But every single Shabbat, in fact, some Shabbatot, I remember, the Gabbai of the synagogue would wait for her to come to the Beit HaKnesset to take the Torah. Chana Biton didn't come, we're waiting for her to kiss the Torah. She would walk. It would take her, you know what the walk? The walk was maybe from where I am right now to the Sprouts grocery store. Sometimes that walk took my grandmother 45 minutes with a cane and like that. And she would stop at every place, then I would walk with her. But she had to go kiss that Torah. Because what is the point of Shabbat? Just with food, and just with chamin, and just with schnitzel, and just with rice, and that's Shabbat. She have to go to Shabbat to kiss the Torah. So how do we somehow create a framework in which that's not a Shabbat? Shabbat were given, and holidays were given to the Jewish people. You don't have to work. You don't have to worry about your bills. You don't have to, even if you are worried, there's nothing you can do about it today. They were given to the Jewish people to study Torah. Somebody came to our community and said, well, how many classes do you have on Shabbat? I said, we have a class in the morning, we have a class by Kiddush, we have a class before Mincha, we have a class during Sudat Shishit. It's 4 classes on Shabbat. There's so many classes. No, it's not. What else are we going to do? Sit at home and drink coffee and eat sunflower seeds? I mean, what can you do with your Shabbat? You're here to learn. And if that's what you do on Shabbat, that's also the way you enjoy your Shabbat. Good. I see people, they have board games, Monopoly, Risk. That's what they do for Shabbat, because they have nothing to do. They're sitting there waiting till the sun sets. We don't ever ask here, when does Shabbat end?
Right.
What's the point of announcing when Shabbat ends? Shabbat will end, but when we're done with Shabbat, it's going to end.
Rabbi, I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing things that I've got a lot of conflict in the past, and you're opening again another gate. And what I hear is Torah is being taught, kind of in theory, but it's not being taught spiritually. And I think if rabbis don't touch spiritually, people don't get engaged with connecting. They get engaged in reading. Just like praying, you read, but you don't connect. And if you don't connect, I think that's when you lose. You don't know what you're losing, and yet you think that you're following the Torah.
I think the key word that you mentioned is engaging. We don't engage people in Judaism.
Yes.
People know they come to the Beit HaKnesset. There's nothing engaging.
Yes.
I'm going to come, I'm going to hear the same thing they sang last week, the same mumble last week, the same Torah reading as last year. The rabbi's going to say something I've heard before. It's something I've heard before. As much as he thinks he's saying something nice, I've heard it before. And then we're all going to go outside to eat the same food they served last week, and then we go home. And so you say, am I engaged in the Beit HaKnesset? Why are the young people not coming? I'll tell you why they're not coming. It's boring. For some reason, you have a guilty conscience. That's why you come every week. But the next generation doesn't have the guilty conscience. They don't feel like, why should I come? You know, now in LA, there's been a push. Rabbi, come at least once every few months and make a Shabbat morning. I said, I'll come make a Shabbat. I'm on camera, I have to be careful what I say. I'll come make a Shabbat morning service. But no tefillah. No tefillah. I don't want to pray with anybody. You know how many synagogues there are in LA? You can't even count how many. You can have 100 synagogues, and for sure there's more than that. How many Beit Knesset are there? What can I possibly give you in terms of a Beit Knesset that you don't have already? You don't have a nice chazan? There are chazanim with nicer voices. You don't have someone nice to read the Torah? You don't have buildings that are nicer than this one? I'm sure you can find Beit Knesset nicer than this one. So what do you not have? You don't have any engagement. I bring a person, let's say it's a young couple. They're 35 years old with 1 or 2 children. They come to the Beit Knesset. They sit there from 9 o'clock until 12:30, listening to everybody else mumble in Hebrew. That's what they do. I mean, they came clearly with an inspiration to connect to something Jewish. Half of the time, they're running in and out of the room to go check on their kid in the kids program. The other half of the time, they're sitting there, don't know what's going on. They don't speak Hebrew. They don't read Hebrew. They don't understand Hebrew. Even if they read Hebrew, they're not sure what they're actually saying right now. I said, 3 hours, it's like when you're inspired, and then you say, hey, wait! and then you wait 3 hours. That kills any kind of inspiration. I would rather say, you're going to meet once a month, let's get together, you pray wherever you want to pray. If that's what you want to do, do. Come at 11 o'clock and let's sit and study. Let's engage in a conversation. Let's realize that there's something more, there's a discussion. Judaism is alive. Judaism is kicking. Judaism here. I'm not taking away from tefillah. I said the next step will be that those people who have engaged each other intellectually will then decide that they want to pray with each other. When the people who are first engaged with each other decide to pray together, that kind of prayer, you know what's like on Yom Kippur here?
It's true.
Have you been to Yom Kippur in our community?
No.
Yom Kippur in our Kehillat is very strange. It's very different than other communities. Most communities, what happens on Yom Kippur, you're normally a community of 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, and then comes Yom Kippurim, you're 300 people. So you're drowned out by a bunch of people who are not normally here. They're sitting in your chair, they're using your talmud, they're bidding, they have more money than you have because they only come once a year, they don't donate the whole year. And you're the regular, but you're not regular on Yom Kippur. In our Beit HaKnesset, we have all of the people that are connected to the community that are here. But we don't really have guests on Yom Kippur. There's not room. We don't advertise, hey, Yom Kippur services. The people that come are people who in some way have met each other before here in the Kehillat. We pray together. And it somehow feels like we're all together, we're going to war. We're now fighting that we should have one more year of life. When the time we reach Nila and we start, the singing in the room is not a bunch of people who know the same tune. It's many people who are all praying for each other, with each other. We all know each other's problems. We all know which of the people in the room are right wing and who's left wing and who's keeping this and who doesn't keep that and whose kid is giving them problems and who has health. We know everything about everybody, and we're praying as a group of people who love each other and care about each other and are trying to accomplish Yom HaKippurim together. That feeling I've never felt somewhere else. Because first you have to engage people. When the people are engaged with each other, then you pray together. It doesn't make sense to pray with a bunch of strangers. When I go to the Kotel and I pray Mincha with a group of random people, yes, I'm praying Mincha, and I'm praying at the Kotel, so those two things are tremendous. But I have nothing to do with the 9 other people that are standing here with me. I mean, they're Jews, so obviously I have what to do with them in that regard. But I don't feel anything there. When I'm in Yerushalayim, I miss my Beit HaKnesset. I miss sitting in a room with the people that I know. I know even who's going to fight with me. I know who's going to be a hard time. I know, but at least I know. When you're alone, it's like... Tefillah is a very intimate thing. And somehow we've turned that into a communal thing, which is hard enough to pray personal things in a communal setting. But now, we tell, in most Jewish communities, you don't even go to one Beit HaKnesset. All of you go normally to 1 or 2 Beit HaKnesset. In LA, in New York, you pray in the morning here, you pray in the afternoon here, you pray the nighttime there. Whatever minyan, it's like a movie theater. Whichever minyan is convenient. There's a 7:15, there's an 8:15, there's a 9:15, there's down that street, if you ate at this person's house, there's a Beit HaKnesset next to their house. You have no kviut. There's no stability in your service of Hashem. You don't have a set chair. You don't have a set table. You don't have a set prayer book. You're wandering around praying in different places like a homeless person. You're a homeless Jew. But people are not taught to think like that. They're taught to think that you just have to pray. That's all you have to do. Go wherever you need to go so you can catch a minyan. When you catch a minyan, I need to have my minyan. I need to have my people that I pray with. It's a different feeling. At Tisha B'Av, when we sit here on the floor and we cry, we've spoken either on Shabbat or in a class or in a kollel. We've all spoken about Tisha B'Av already before. Even now, we spoke about Tisha B'Av. So that means that if you come here on Tisha B'Av, we all know what we're supposed to be doing. So we do it together. If a stranger walks in off the street and wants to join us, they're welcome to join us. But they might feel lost, because they're not used to doing what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach somewhere, and they're just trying not to eat and not to drink and not to wear leather shoes. And they feel that disconnect. We're not superior, we're just different. And I believe, like I told the people in LA, don't build more Batei Knesset, you have enough. Build places of engagement. Engage. Young people are professionals, they have political opinions, show them the Torah is relevant to their profession. Why are there no chachamim? No, there are. They give classes on medical ethics and halakha. Now I'm dealing with a few medical ethics questions. Disconnecting a person from a respirator machine. It's a crazy thing to talk about. You're literally playing God, taking a person's life, putting a person's life. But on the other hand, you're dealing with a real issue. It's an issue of there may be a soul that's trying to leave the world. And is our desire to keep them alive a selfish desire? Because I can't let go of a person? Is taking them off the machine killing them, or is it allowing them to finally go? This is not an easy question. There's no right or wrong answer here. But if you could show young doctors that the Torah talks about these things, that our HaShamayim care deeply about these things, they're not going to come to the Beit Knesset and hear again why the donkey spoke to Bilam and the donkey talked. And how much can you tell a person that and they think that Torah is Aesop's fables? They don't find relevance in Torah. You talk about issues and they're real issues in halakha. We spoke about prison. Yesterday somebody called me. Their son's in prison. He got arrested for something. He's sitting in jail. How do they come? They heard a class of mine regarding prison reform. I believe halakha speaks a lot about we don't believe in a prison system the way the prison system looks today. Why are we not engaging young people in the conversation on prisons? It's a real problem in our midst. These are things. Politics. You want to talk about politics? I don't talk about politics here. But there are people who care deeply about politics. I said on Shabbat in my class, if you vote, I know you might not agree with me, if you vote for a political party or a political figure, if it's a mayor, if it's a president, if it's a city councilman, if it's a proposition this or proposition that, and you didn't ask a posek, a Talmid Chacham, what does halakha say about this issue? How are you any different than somebody who's eating food on Yom Kippur? That's what they say on these issues. You chose not to follow it? Good, so it's like you chose not to follow any area of halakha. Halakha is relevant to everywhere. Engage people. Let them fight with you. Let people fight with the rabbi too. You can fight with him. But let them people show that there's relevance to Torah. And then get them to pray together. Then their kids will want to come also. We're doing everything backwards. We open up these B'tei Knesset and people don't want to come. So why build another one? And another one, and another one, and another one? And we're not doing anything different there.
So relating to what you're saying right now, and back to what Nehemiah was, you just read, it doesn't make sense to me that they started with what kind of tools you can use on Shabbat. They didn't really, it sounds like they didn't really engage the people. It was more about...
That was the step before. Remember the step before was making sure they changed the writing of the Torah, the script of the Torah, so everybody could read it. And they enacted the reading of Torah publicly, and they took the prayers out of the Beit Mikdash and put them into people's homes. These 3 steps that Israel was taking were steps that were meant to ensure that every person was educated first. Every person could choose their own religious path based on the knowledge they acquired. Now we're dealing with the last step of Nehemiah, which is, okay, so what details need to be correct? You're right. And Nehemiah's path on his own is not enough. But we're dealing with an Israel who first making sure everybody has to be educated and engaged and know what's going on. You can't have the Torah, only rabbis know the Torah, only the Kohanim know the Torah, and the rest of the people don't know. But that's normally how it is. In fact, even that's how it is today. How many people do you ask them a question? They say, I don't know, I have to ask my rabbi. Or they say, well, my rabbi told me that, Okay, why did your rabbi say that?
Nobody tried to find out more than what they hear.
So, but why? Why not? Maybe someone says, my rabbi said, why did your rabbi say that?
They forgot to think.
But these are people who think the rest of... Agree with me? These are people who are thinking in their job.
Yes.
They think about other things.
Yes.
So why Torah, their brain stop?
Because they are ignorant.
You go to school and you learn how to ask questions and do research. It comes to Judaism, by and large, I don't ever remember most rabbis encouraging you to ask questions.
Thank you.
It's just it was and it was and it was.
Thank you.
And that's a problem. That's
Of
we
course it's
became
a
like a
problem.
Catholic school.
Right.
The Catholics
Yes.
also say don't ask questions.
Correct. Just believe.
But we have answers to the... what are we afraid of? What are you afraid of somebody asking questions? The worst thing that can happen is to say, listen, I don't have an answer. Let's find it together. What's the worst thing that can happen?
But also the answers that comes from some rabbis are not totally open to the source. They're open to the katniot? Takanot. They're open to the katanot. They'll give you the answers of the katanot.
I don't think that the rabbis
That's
are
why
all
there is-
educated properly. It's like, imagine if you went...
Thank you.
Imagine if you always asked your questions.
בגלל זה יש שולחן ערוך.
Yeah, they're...
עליו שולחן ערוך. All the answers in the book.
Come to court.
Everything. Ma?
Come to the call out. We do that.
Marlene's recruiting.
I
Imagine
I
if
have
you
the
asked.
book and I read it by myself.
Imagine if you asked
Oh my
all
God.
your medical questions to the EMT and an ambulance. You know a friend, he's an EMT, he's an ambulance technician. You would ask all your medical questions there, or you go to a doctor.
From my point of view, whoever is available right away.
Okay, so you're
Or
the
both
reason.
of them.
The
Oh,
reason you call
absolutely,
the reason you
yes.
call 911 is because you need medical help right away.
Quick.
The doctor might
Quick.
take 7 hours to get to the hospital. That's
What
right.
are we doing
Yeah,
that
not
for?
exactly. But between a doctor and a EMT, obviously the doctor should. I'm not saying what does.
That's right.
Should have
Should.
more education
you.
than the EMT,
Yeah.
and just like the doctor should have more education than the nurse, and the neurosurgeon should know more about your brain than your general family
Absolutely.
doctor. Right?
Correct.
Generally, that's the breakup.
Right.
How come in the rabbinic world all the rabbis are created equally?
They are. I don't know.
But they're not. They're not all equal. I'm very easy. It's not an embarrassing thing for me to tell you that my rabbi knows more than I do. That's why I call him for questions. And if you had a big question that was above my pay grade, so to speak, I would call him for help. That's why he exists. That's why
That's how it should be.
there's a hierarchy in the world. Sometimes what we get stuck with is we get stuck with rabbis who are, you wonder, this rabbi had 1,001 opportunities before them. Why are they dafka sitting right here? It's because they probably couldn't make the cut to be somewhere else. And now we're blaming them that they give us inferior answers to our questions. Maybe it's because they're an inferior level of scholar. That's all. It's not an offensive thing to think.
So again, you open the discussion and you open an understanding. There's clarity, and when there's clarity, you have a choice. But
Yeah,
I think when you don't have
But you can
clarity,
only get clarity from someone who will give you clarity.
and you're
So
doing that,
both of
Rabbi.
them were
Yeah.
But I can. By the way, I've been in other places where if I would teach the way I teach, the people wouldn't accept it. So it takes two. It takes people who are willing to listen. Some people
Wow.
Rabbi, don't confuse me with the details. It's just tell me what to do. Everybody wants me to tell you what to do. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to think. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think the culture has, for as long as I can remember, supported the question, the answer, the investigating, the considering, the multiple opinions. I mean, it's,
culture.
Marlene, the culture is the Talmud that we wrote is only full of questions and answers and fighting and contradictions. All the books of Judaism are written that way.
but the
expressed
general population
That's
doesn't
right.
really access them in the same way that you're talking like that. We
You're
should.
right. So you're right. So the question is why? We once had a class here.
It's the
If
culture.
women could be rabbis, there was a conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm not opening up that conversation right now. But over the years, I've been thinking. So what does it mean to be a rabbi today in America? How much do you have to study to be a rabbi?
Oh.
Today, you can get your rabbinic ordination in 9 or 10 months.
Wow.
It's not even a year.
Online.
It's not even. You could do it today. You could do it online.
Wow.
Today, big institutions, meaning like flagship institutions that you know of, movements that you've heard of, ordain their rabbis over Skype. So it's a joke. It's a joke. And the question is, so if a woman wants to be part of the joke, why can't she? I mean, why only men can be part of the joke? What does it take today to be a rabbi? You don't have to even go to... There are rabbis that have never been to yeshiva before. There are rabbis who don't own books. I don't know how to say this in a different way. Who got their house that have books. So today to be a rabbi is not synonymous with being a Torah scholar. And we, as the people who don't know the difference, we get burnt out by that. Because we meet people, they look the part, they're dressing the part, they're filling the position that's the part. But you're dealing with a paralegal, not a lawyer. You're dealing with a clerk, not at the courthouse, not the judge. You're dealing with the EMT, not the doctor. But the EMT is presenting, I'm a doctor. The clerk is presenting, I'm the judge. And then we get burned out. How come this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? How come she doesn't know what she's talking about? Because they really don't know what they're talking about. But today, the titles are very easy. And to prove yourself on a scholarship level, you don't have to. Even scientists, they can't say whatever they want. I mean, they can.
Sure.
But when they publish in journals, they expect to get some kind of peer review. They expect. You're open. Today, if a rabbi were to write an article, and I were to write a peer review, who would be the one making problems? Me. Why? How? You don't like Jewish unity? How could you do this to him? How are you writing it? I'm just critiquing what was written. It doesn't follow the Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't follow. It's somebody made something up, and I'm calling them out on it. But what's the problem? You're divisive. That's the culture of Judaism you and I live in.
What's the culture
That's the
today?
culture in general.
So
the culture.
we're not even. It's very dangerous to engage people in a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Very dangerous not to, really.
It's more dangerous not to.
Yes.
So I have an article online. I think I sent it to the group, called "Holy War: Fighting for the Sake of Unity." Sometimes you have to fight in order to be united. It's a fight.
Absolutely.
Was that a
Absolutely.
kind of conversation? No.
No, I sent it out, I think, to the Google Classroom.
שבוע שעבר שלחת הרבה דברים.
That's right. I did send a few things. Classes also. I published a lot of things on the Classroom. If you're not part of the Google Classroom, you should check it out. I'll add you if you're not there.
I'd like to, thank you.
The idea that we're all just supposed to get along and kumbaya, it's really beautiful, but it's really not true. Like I said, we had 12 tribes once upon a time. We weren't always one people. And we're allowed to engage. The problem is when we start to fight with each other to the point where we don't even consider each other to be Jewish. That's the problem. The problem is that, I criticize Chassidut a lot. It's something that comes up a lot. I married a Chassidah. For me, my wife is as Jewish as I am, and her parents are as Jewish as my parents, and it doesn't translate into a practical place of these people are not part of my people anymore. So you're allowed to critique whatever you want. Hillel and Shammai fought about everything, but they married each other's children. Their students married each other. They fought. It's not like fighting. It'll be the worst fight you ever had in the world. Think about the most extreme right-wing politician, the most extreme left-wing politician that were best friends and went to vacation together.
Well, that's the beauty of it.
We can't imagine such a thing anymore in the world that we live in.
Yeah, no.
The Gemara says, Talmidei Chachamim shebeBavel, the Torah scholars of Bavel, machrivim ze et ze b'halacha. They destroy each other with halacha. They use the Torah to destroy each other. B'halacha. I mean, they're using Jewish law to show how the other one is so bad. That's what they use their Jewish law for. And then it says, Talmidei Chachamim shebe'eretz Yisrael, the Torah scholars of Eretz Yisrael, man'imim ze et ze b'halacha. They make each other more pleasant with halacha. And here it's not talking about a geography. Obviously the rabbis in Israel are just like the rabbis in America. But the story is there used to be rabbis that could use their different halachic stances to help each other out. To make each other look nice, to make each other look good. In today's world, everyone's using the Torah to destroy everybody else. It's a double-edged sword. And Hashem tells us that. The Chachamim write, Torah hi cherev shel shte piyot. It has a double-edged sword. The Torah hi sam ha'chaim. The Torah is the potion of life. The Torah hi sam ha'mavet. The Torah is also the potion of death. It depends who's administering the Torah. When a nurse comes, I figured I've been spending time in the hospital recently with different patients. When the nurse comes to put the IV, in the fluid in the IV, if she's not careful and there are air bubbles in there, she can kill somebody. It's the same syringe. One person can kill a person with it, and one person can save a person with it. With the oxygen. When my girls, 1 year, a year ago my girls were in the hospital. They were born a year ago from Friday, their birthday, the Hebrew birthday. The danger there was with oxygen levels. If they give too much oxygen, it's fatal. Too little oxygen, it could cause brain damage. And the way they gave them food is a beautiful thing. The food that comes naturally from the mother is healthy for them, just healthy for the baby. Whatever diseases they had, the mother's milk is able to heal. It's unbelievable. The mother knows it's not just milk that she's eating, nutrients. But for the first few weeks of our baby's life, they couldn't nurse at all. They had to, so we would, whatever we could give them, we gave them. And the rest of the time, they were on this special, it's like a drip, but it's food. It's some kind of formula for premature babies. And the doctors were begging us to give as much milk as we can. Because this drip, even though it gives nutrients to the baby, if they get too much of it, it will destroy their liver. I mean, they know that. They know that the thing that they're giving to save a person in terms of food will destroy them in terms of a liver. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's milk that He created doesn't have that problem. In life, everything has that too much of something, too little of something. You see people that are using the Torah to destroy Judaism. They're not using the Torah to preserve Judaism. They're not using the Torah to forward Judaism. They're using the Torah to hurt people. And the bottom line is that's where we're at. And if some of us have to be vocal and to say things that other people don't like to hear, but the purpose of doing all that is not, it's not to make problems. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to, hey, you need whether you like it or not, you need to be reviewed critically. You need to be put in place. There used to be among the old Chachamim in Yerushalayim, for example, you would ask one of the rabbis a halachic question. He would say, don't ask me this question. Go ask that rabbi the question. Why would he say that?
Couldn't deal with it.
Because he felt like I knew better.
No, he said, I know that I'm going to say no, but you can't. You don't need to answer no. You need to answer yes. My friend, I disagree with him, but he'll tell you the answer yes. Go ahead. I mean, even though I don't agree with that ruling, I want you to have that ruling because you need it.
Because he knew that person.
Yeah.
Knew.
So we need each other. I mean, we need each other because sometimes there are things that I can't rule about. So you can do it for me. You can help. That's the way that normal, healthy people who appreciate each other, even though they disagree about everything, they respect each other.
That's it.
And there are people that don't.
Respect each other.
Okay, you said about they don't want to deal with it. That's a funny joke. I know it's offensive to some people. They say once somebody came to Rav Vadio said, it's a joke. Not true. They said, Rabbi, my cat, he has to have food for Pesach, but the food that I found for Pesach, I don't know if it's good is it kasher for Pesach, not kasher for Pesach. My cat, he has stomach issues. How is this? Your cat and your stomach issues. I'm like, what do you want from me? Didn't want to deal with the question. So he told me, I said, listen, your cat, is a black cat or is a white cat? He's a white cat. I said, so please, across the hallway is the Ashkenazi chief rabbi. Go ask him the question. Sometimes, you send somebody else to someone because you don't want to deal with the question. Yeah. But really, the truth is that we need each other because if we don't have each other, there are things that Ashkenazi rabbis are able to do that Sfaradim were held back. The Rambam said no. Rabbi Yosef Karo said no. So sometimes you need somebody who can get over that fence. You need somebody who's able to rule that way. You have somebody, then there's in terms of specialties, there are rabbis that are experts in medicine. I'm not an expert in medicine. So those rabbis that are experts in medicine, today you have medical doctors who are Talmud Chachamim. There's such a thing in the world. Those rabbis are able to rule on medical. Why should I deal with medical issues if I don't know what I'm talking about? My father's an electrical engineer. So I've been learning with him recently a lot about the laws of electricity on Shabbat. And it's fascinating. From all the books of the rabbis who discuss electricity on Shabbat, there's one Chacham. His great grandson was here. He prayed with us on Tuesday night. He came at the end of Kolo. Remember when all the young boys over here?
Oh, really?
Rabbi David Shalush was the chief rabbi of Netanya. He's from a Moroccan family that came to Israel, and they studied in Shivat Poat Yosef in Jerusalem. That's where Rabbi Yosef studied. Mordechai Eliyahu studied. Rav Kaduri. There's a lot of big rabbis. Rav Chaim David Halevy. All of them were there in the same time period. And he was asked about electricity on Shabbat and holidays. And he said, how can I answer this question if I'm not an expert in the way electricity works? I know how halakha works, but electricity works. So he hired an electrical engineer to sit with him, to teach him from A to Z, everything he needs to know about electricity. And he wrote the tshuva, the answer, only after a few weeks of studying with this man. And then he asked his man to look over it with him, to make sure that what he's saying is correct. And my father said it's the only tshuva, the only letter written by a rabbi regarding electricity on Shabbat that you'll feel like the rabbi understands what electricity is all about.
Wow.
Everybody else electricity is like a fire, electricity is like electricity is my father said you read it as an engineer and it makes you sound like, the rabbi clearly knows about what halakha says about fire, but he does not know what halakha says about electricity. And it could change. It would change. If we delegated the things that we don't know to people who do know, then the whole world of Torah would look very different. Wow. Very different.
People would have to be different.
Yeah, the people, I'll tell you the truth, as we like to blame leadership, I blame a lot the people. I've been around the block a few places teaching Torah. And sometimes you realize that the Torah that you find to be life-changing, other people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. It takes them, everybody likes to be comfortable. But if you truly want to learn something, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be willing. If somebody comes to Shiur Torah and they're not willing to think, maybe I'm going to think differently about something than when I came here, then you're here for entertainment purposes. You like the person, you like the people, it's a social. If you're going without an open mind somewhere, then you're not really in the pursuit of truth. You're learning more, but you're not a truth seeker. And many people in the world are not truth seekers. When you speak to big audiences and you see that some people, you're not telling them fantastical stories. You're not telling them gematrias from the Zohar, upside down letters, and you're not telling them that the fire, the black fire, and the white. It doesn't sound exciting like Harry Potter. They fall asleep. If you're teaching them really what it says, and I think that's the reason why many rabbis don't teach halakha properly, is that people don't care. People don't want to hear it. They want to do everything the way they've always done it. You know where you see this? In the conservative movement. 3 years ago, the conservative movement allowed kitniyot to be eaten on Pesach. Why it took them so long, I don't know. And here I'm not mocking the conservative movement. At that moment in time, I don't know if it was hundreds, but tens and tens and tens of conservative rabbis signed a letter to the Central Rabbinic Association, whatever their association was. They refused to let kitniyot in their synagogues on Pesach. Year-long Jewish traditions. I think to myself, of all the Jewish traditions you threw out of the window, the beans on Pesach is the one you can't get rid of. That's the one that bothers you so much. But then you see something else. you see that they're so attached to something that is not legal. It's not a halakha. It's so sentimental to them, they're not even willing to consider for one moment that there's something else beyond that. The Jewish people are very much the fiddler on the roof. I would love not to believe it, but the Jewish people are, tradition is very important for them. You change something, they get mad.
Which has nothing to do with religion.
Nothing to do with Judaism at all.
With Judaism.
It's a personal, it's like a stock. Like some people are afraid to move houses because they're afraid of change. Some people don't like to sleep, to eat in someone else's house. They're afraid of different things. They're afraid. So people have a phobia of change because change, it's not comfortable.
It's unknown.
It's the fear of the unknown. That's right.
That's true.
The fear of the unknown. And I think that as much as we say, my wife was telling me, wouldn't it be amazing if we could teach this thing to the whole world? I said, it would be amazing, but I promise you the whole world doesn't want to hear it. It doesn't want to hear it. And you have to make peace with the fact that in every generation you have yichidei zvula. You have people that are different than the rest of the population. And those people that are different than the rest of the population spend so much of their life frustrated. They say common sense is not a blessing, it's a curse. Because you have to spend the rest of your life dealing with all the people who don't have it. This is it's life. You have to deal with all the people who don't have common sense. People that are truth seekers are so upset at everybody else all the time. How come you don't care so much? How come you don't want to? And what they don't realize is you're never going to change the mindset, the herd mentality in the world, in every department, not just in religion, in every place, is so hard to change. You would be much happier finding for yourself 2, 3, 4, 5 real friends that they might not agree with you, but they're like-minded in the sense of truth. I told a person recently, Rabbi, I love your classes. I'm a Rambamist, so I can't. There's things we disagree on. I said, okay. I said, if we're 90% in agreement, then that means I'm 90% your friend, not 10% your enemy. That's something you should internalize. Like, if we disagree on something, it doesn't. If we 70% agree, we're 70% friends. We're not 30% enemies. But people focus a lot on what differentiates them, what brings them close. You can find a group of 4, 5, 6 people who are truth seekers. Look at our shiur. It fluctuates on the number of people who come. So what? The people who come are not homogenous in any one. I can't tell you that there's a common denominator in terms of religiosity, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of culture, in terms of being truth seekers and people who truly want to study Torah. That's the common denominator, and because of that, we're able to study things. But I'm sure that if we were to take this conversation to another group of people with 100 very intelligent people, they would be very upset about this conversation because they cannot handle for a moment to think that something they've been doing for so long is maybe meaningless. Whereas Ariella was saying, wow, Tisha B'Av, all these rules felt so meaningless until you put it in context of meaning. They're looking at, you're taking all my meaningless things and giving them meaning. That means that I've been doing it wrong all these years. It's a defensive thing.
But actually, that's what I came to conclusion.
That's right.
The way I understood
but
it.
What I tell you is, most people would not reach your conclusion. I would love to believe that, and I used to believe that. And I told my wife that. I said, if we were tomorrow to make some huge mega challah bake in San Diego, everyone's gonna come, bake chalot. We're gonna do a yoga chant standing on our forehead on the ground. You know how many people would have? We could rent out the stadium. It would be full. If we were to do tomorrow a class on real Jewish laws that are not relevant anymore in today's times, or what the purpose of the Jewish people is, or something major.
Very interesting.
Nobody would come. We'd have 6 people.
You don't think people?
I know, and I don't think. I know that nobody would come. I've given classes in this Beit Knesset. I've given classes in other places. That the topic of the class on its own, people should want to pay $100,000 to hear, not because of me. A letter from Rav Uziah that nobody read before. That kind of thing, you're not going to get it somewhere else. It's not going to come in a Parsha class. And who comes? Only the people who care. The people who don't care, they're all busy, I don't know, they're all busy tying red strings on their wrist. I don't know what they're doing. There's something else. So don't be afraid that you're part of the few, but be proud that you're part of the few. It's not a fear. It's just a pride to realize everybody else, it's not their fault. They simply, maybe it was lack of education. You never know if it's nature or nurture. But at the very least, they were nurtured not to be critical thinkers in certain things, especially not when it comes to religion. And I think that we can change that. But it's not going to happen overnight in a mass stadium. It'll happen slowly. Tipin. The Mashiach comes, kima. Slowly. You keep pushing and you keep pushing, and ideas will eventually spread.
So you see, so it is. It's not just everybody's resistance. It's the interplay between the leaders and the people. You have to have leaders that want to foster that kind of open-minded truth-seeking.
And to
most
find
of them don't.
To find the people who want that thing. That's not always an easy shidduch to make.
Right, but if you don't have leaders that at least espouse that kind of approach,
Right. That's right.
and it's okay always to be the don't ask
Follower.
questions, just
Follow.
do. I mean, then people aren't going to be even thinking about
I'll leave you with a story, and this story I'm sure I've shared before. And this happened not by Rav Pele, it's not in my Sephardic yeshiva. It happened in my Ashkenazi yeshiva in Baltimore. So understand it's a value that goes across ethnicities and across backgrounds. One of my rabbis was giving a class in Gemara. You know, the way you do it is you study for 3 hours. He tells you we're going to study this page of Gemara. You prepare for 3 hours. You have to know everything about that page of Gemara. And then he comes to class, and he gives a whole novel reinterpretation of the text. It takes a very brilliant personality to do that. But essentially what he's sharing is his own interpretation of everything that happened there. With a lot of sources and other, look at this in context, look at that piece that says the same word somewhere else with another commentary. That's what they do. We're in the class, and it's an hour and 20-minute class, so it's a long class. And we come to the class, 20 minutes into the class, he closed his Gemara, got up from his chair, walked out the door.
Why?
That's
So why? So we went after him, and he said, I've been teaching a group of potential Torah scholars, Torah, for 20 minutes, saying things that I'm saying for the first time. These are our first ideas. And not one person in the room argued with me. None of you have said that what I'm saying sounds interesting, or it's not acceptable, it's not agreeable. He said, how am I supposed to expect you to become Torah scholars if you won't challenge me? And he left. He just walked out of the classroom. And that was, I don't remember anything else I learned that year. But that teaching was the most important teaching I got, which was the purpose of a student in yeshiva is to argue. Yeah, and there are not all rabbis are make it easy. Some rabbis get very offended when you argue with them. Hey, just be quiet and sit down. We have those teachers too. But the real teachers are the ones who allow you to engage them.
Yeah.
And I told this to my wife, that kids that go through a regular Jewish education, it's a day school, it's a Jewish high school, it's then maybe a Jewish 1-year program in Israel, they never really get that opportunity to be in a yeshiva. What is yeshiva? Yeshiva is my parents are paying all my bills. I have nothing to worry about.
Really?
It's 13, 14 years old until 18 years old. It's a time where I live away from home, so there's nobody telling me what to do. And my parents are not. It's a good time to get away from your parents, because now is when you fight with your parents. They want you to do and you don't want to do. And you're in yeshiva. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about where your money is coming from. You're not 20 trying to figure out college. You're free. You're innocent. It's probably the last leg of your life, and you're allowed to engage with Jewish ideas. How long? We stayed studying until midnight. You could stay studying until 2 o'clock in the morning. You have nowhere you have to be. You don't have to come home and help with the babysitting. You don't have to go to your brother's house to go because he has a party. You're secluded, alone, in a world to think. Girls in the Jewish community never get that. Never, ever. Even the girls that go to schools that teach them real Torah, but you're never immersed. I don't know that there's a yeshiva for girls. They go. For most boys in the Jewish community, they're in day schools. They come home at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and they deal with life the way life is. Sometimes you find a kid that goes to Israel for 1 year, and they never want to come back. They stay there, they want to go 2 years, 3 years. The reason they don't want to come back, it's not a theory, it's a fact, is the first time in their life they were ever able to immerse themselves in study. And it's the first time in their life, who teaches in first year schools in Israel? It's the crazy American rabbis that went and fell in love with Israel. They fell in love with Torah. They're crazy enough to leave their family's house in Manhattan and to leave the penthouse in Florida. They're the ones who are crazy. They're in Israel. But they're super passionate about Torah. They're passionate about the land. They're passionate about going to the army. They're passionate about... And the first time in these kids' life, it's 18 years of you paying Jewish education, they met a Jewish teacher who's passionate about being Jewish.
Beautiful.
And then what do you spend your year doing? I don't want you to stay. You better come back here to not passionate life.
Right.
And that's what kids do. They feel like I'm fighting my parents for this. Do you know how many of my students stayed in Israel? They didn't become crazy. They went to the army. They went to university. They have degrees. They got married. They have children. Students. I go every time I go to Israel. I visit my students younger than me that stayed in Israel. They stayed with the crazy people, and they went to the army. And they went to university. They finished Bar Ilan. They finished Rav Tchumi in Herzliya. They finished in the Technion in Haifa. And now they're working in Israel. They're living in Israel, and they're living a very engaged Jewish life. But they never, in 18 years of Jewish school in the United States, they were not once engaged in such a way. We can change that. We have to change that. We have to. That's our choice. Have a beautiful day.
Thank
I
you.
want to